Board of Education order and have roll call attendance, please.
Walker.
Here.
Dyke.
Here.
Bryan.
Here.
Matt.
Here.
Maycumber. Here.
Reading of the district mission statement by Director Macon.
Our mission is to engage, inspire, and empower students and staff in order to maximize learning.
And agenda item 3 is approval of the agenda. Any corrections? Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion second to approve the agenda as presented. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 4 is welcome to visitors and receive public comment. Does anyone wish to make public comment this evening? None. We'll move on to agenda item 5. Comments by board members and superintendent. Start with Mr. Fisher. Do you have any comments?
Just a lot of great things happening. We've been doing all the welcome back with staff. We have breakfast with First Security Bank tomorrow at 7:30 if you want to stop by. We had an opening day where
Tomorrow?
I'm sorry, Wednesday.
My schedule's already messed up.
Well, today's Sunday, right? Wednesday at 7:30 at the middle school. Did welcome backs with all the staff, talked about our vision, our core values. Did a welcome back with the entire staff in the college gym, which was really inspiring and just great seeing everybody back and getting ready for kids.
Any comments by board members?
I'm excited about tonight's event. It's going to be a really exciting board workshop.
With that, we'll move on to agenda item 6, which is the board workshop. Turn the floor over to Harry.
Good. Anything else you or Jason or you might want to comment on? We'll go ahead.
Just welcome you guys. Looking forward to it.
Thanks for hosting Mona. Mona's retired from her other job in the last few months, and she's preparing to lead board workshops like this tonight. So thanks for letting her just hang out. Journeyman and training time for us. So thank you. Mona was a longtime board member, board president at Decorah. So she's walked in your shoes many years, and appreciate her coming.
So this is the reward having done all that. So if we endure, then there might be some payoff at the end of this. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, you know there's a higher calling. Yeah,
There
that's right.
really is a line on some resume for this.
That's exactly right.
That's cool. That's the biggest thing I've learned right now.
There you go. Thank you for the chance to hang out with you tonight. What I would, my best hopes are, having talked with Mike and Mike with Jason, is that we walk out of here with as clear as we can get at the big picture things that you as a board in your district need Mike to focus on. And not just things pulled out of the air, but how that aligns with your strategic plan and your goals. Because if his work isn't prioritized around strategic plans and goals, then he's really got two sets of goals, the strategic plan and some other set of goals. So trying to help align that piece, that's the big chunk. And then do a little bit of speculating or forecasting on what is your district strategic plan and its goals. What's that mean for your work in addition to his? What are the board's leadership contributions toward those things happening? That chunk, and then we'll wrap up the last part of tonight, connecting that up with what that means for evaluation, his evaluation, what it might mean for board self-assessment, but particularly his evaluation. And just a couple of, I think, what I hear from boards across the state is just a couple of common sense best practices that can help his evaluation and your feedback to him be an ongoing process rather than a once-a-year event, which can often happen. So how to make that an ongoing process. So his goals linked up, tied to evaluation, and a little bit of conversation around what that might mean for your district goals might mean for your work. Anybody want to weigh in with the questions or thoughts about what we're aiming for tonight? Okay.
I guess how would this compare to what we did prior in the spring with Dr. Cox? Would you say that these are similar type ideas, or is this something totally different?
Yeah, having not known exactly what you did, but one of the things a little bit later in the second part, we're gonna ask you to reflect not about his evaluation specifically, but what about the process? What works in the process you used, and what might be those things that would help strengthen that process? So that piece, yeah, Josh, that'll link right up. In the first part, we'll see where this takes us. My best hope is just a quick review on your strategic plan, what it means for you, how it, the the potential it has to influence your work, his work, and then to give Mike a chance to weigh in on this, because he's just looked at it and talked with you and staff as entry plan steps. Just what does he see are some of those areas within your strategic plan that might be places for him to lean into most heavily? So I'll ask you that question in an hour or two, and just say, what do you think, how does this sync up? You should be able to build on what you've done in the past and take next steps, whatever it might be to strengthen it.
Did you say an hour or two, Harry?
90 minutes is what we're aiming for,
Okay.
and anything shorter than that's a good thing.
Thank you.
How's that?
Perfect.
I heard the 2 hour mark on that.
That's an average of 1 to 2 hours is 90 minutes.
There you
That's
go.
all.
Thank you.
That's all. I'll push on the 90 minutes, you will. All right, so I'd ask this, on the left-hand side of your folder, and yes, the pens are yours to keep, but would you pull out the white paper is your strategic plan, there's a light lavender, a real light purple sheet right behind it with some reflection questions. And I'm going to ask, and we can do this a couple times tonight, we're going to ask you to just think through some ideas first, and then a couple of times I'm going to have you work in small groups of 3 to just kind of get warmed up, and then we'll share out the ideas among the whole group. But I want you to think across these 4 questions. And you can jot notes, keep them in your head, whatever works best for you, but just help revisit what were the big steps of how this strategic plan came to be, how it was developed, the big chunks. And number 2, ask yourself, as I look at the goals on pages 5 through 9, in the boxes on each page, the blue box, page 5, the red box, page 6, why are, from your vantage point as a board member and a board team, why are these goals essential? How come? And question 3 probably links up with that. How are these 5 goals, how will they make a difference for students? How are they going to make a difference for the school district? And then finally, how do you see these 5 goals in the boxes guiding the work of the board, and how do you see it influencing the work of others in the district? So I want you to take about 2-3 minutes and just think, jot notes, get your ideas organized around this. What do you think? And then we'll start talking.
Is this strategic plan something that's done annually?
No,
So
it's a
by-
5-year period.
Okay.
So yeah, this would have been done
last year before we.
before you guys came on board.
Okay.
Thank you.
Don't we typically revisit it every couple of years and extend it out again?
It was the same, right?
So this was a pretty extensive process that
This
we
one
weren't.
was.
So is it something that you guys did with
It
Dan?
was
or-
Administration.
Administration and
Okay.
collaboration between the staff and community, community focus groups and members.
We had one session, but most of it was administration gathering input.
Okay.
Which answers your one.
Page 2.
Well, that's, good.
Well, because
I
they
didn't
had-
know how to answer that question, so
Yeah, that's right,
I'm
that's
wondering,
right.
You
because
can't
we
really
weren't
answer
part
that
of
plan
it.
in
Yeah,
part because you were not a part of
right.
the process to begin with, so there's a big question mark, behind the question mark on that.
Absolutely, and I should have said that up front. If you're not sure about English, just leave them blank. We'll unpack these. Good stuff. please feel free to project forward, like I'm looking at number 4. It might be, how might they influence, how might they guide? Thinking ahead as well as what's happened in the past. A real quick question, do a ballpark, how long have you served on the board? Just Scott, about how long have you served on the board?
17 years.
Okay, and Jason?
A little over 4.
Okay, Robin?
6 years.
All right, Josh?
1.
This last fall?
Same.
Yes.
Okay, and all the other pieces, you're too good for you guys, not only when you have a new superintendent, but when there's been a couple new board members, it can be a good investment of time to just take a little bit and revisit goals and plans like this, because there's always that challenge of onboarding and how do you create a transition where new members somehow can connect with, own that, or even like your question, is this it for 5 years, or do we have an opportunity to update, that sort of thing, so that you get full team ownership. Scott, Jason, and Missy, would you guys talk for a couple minutes about your thoughts about these 4 questions, and then Robin, Josh, and Mike, would you guys talk for a couple minutes about, and listen for themes or big things that emerge from your conversation.
Okay. You want to go first? I can do
No,
it.
you can.
Okay, so we kind of did number 1, but yeah, that's fine. So number 2, why are these essential? You know, what I see is that looking at this
You think you did?
information really
Just the background on putting these together.
provides a structured framework of guidance for the district, the board, the staff, all those individuals for operation, basically, is what I would say, so that you are always working to meet a goal of some sort, so you have an eye on the finish line
Keeps us on track.
per se, so that's why I think they're important, the structured manner and trying to accomplish or have achievements is an important part of the process. This kind of formalizes that. Makes sense?
I said that the 5 goals are to guide everyone's work in the future because these 5 is what we decided as a district is best for students.
5 goals cover pretty much all facets of our
Some thoughts?
Well, No, I mean, I'm having trouble kind of
Yes,
understanding
no,
all of
that's
this
fine.
stuff, so, I mean, I was
So
looking at
that's
it.
first year too.
Yeah,
Fine.
so I just said, you know, if we want our district to grow, we need to focus on the facilities and updates. To do that, we need to be fiscally responsible. Culture and climate have gone down in the district, so to be
You
able to
said this-
grow,
yeah.
we need
Yeah.
to improve on, improve on that.
Yeah,
to be able to move
good.
forward, so.
You're
I
saying,
was breaking it down more.
yeah, you're saying the same thing, it was
Yeah.
just, you're just,
I broke number 4 down more, but.
so number 3, down the goals make a significant difference for students, how does it make a difference for the district? So I'd put down that they, they target specific areas that were intended to meet the district's mission statement, basically. So they were put together with collaboration of opinions from a number of different people. And all of those opinions were given with the intent of making a significant difference for students. And that's, where these
Even kids have expectations.
formal goals came from, so.
They want to know what their opportunities are.
So did they bring in like a group of teachers from each kind of grade level, so they had a good representation
Yeah.
of the different schools, and how did they?
I don't remember specifically what the
I think it was
groups were.
part of his, when he has had the, his talks.
Yeah, he would do some morning,
Oh,
have you say type meeting things
Right.
and some things there, and then, I don't know if that had and maybe the admin from each building pulls the information from the staff there.
Okay.
And also
SIAC
SIAC
meetings.
was SIAC is the other one, so,
And then the community needs assessment
yeah.
that we had online in November of 16.
Yeah, there was a,
The 697 stakeholders went online and
oh, okay.
answered the survey and were able to make comments.
yeah,
That was part of a big push.
Goals like this for kids in every district.
Pushing that led to all of this as well. So we involved not just faculty, not just staff, not just administrators, 697 people, stakeholders in the community told us what they thought of the district, what are our downsides, what are we doing good, what do we need to do better? And then all of that data was pulled together to formulate these 5 goals. And part of my thought process, though, is that, significant difference for students and the difference in the district, the only way that those things happen is if we continue to make sure that people are reminded of what the 5 goals are. Because it's fine to spend 3 months doing all this research, data, meetings and whatnot, put together a 9-page document, and then it goes on a shelf and we never look at it again for another 4 years when it's time to do another one. At some point, people have to be reminded of what are the goals. And administration has been working on several of them already this fall as this new school year is starting. Maybe they haven't specifically said, this relates to goal 2, which is, and we're gonna do this, but they're working on multiple goals in their
Yep. Okay. Anything else? How are these goals guiding the work of the board, how are they influencing the work of others in the district? I just put that these are the things that help focus the priorities of the board. Without them, it can be difficult to effectively set and accomplish priorities if you don't have an ultimate goal or an ultimate specific area to work on. It can be difficult to set individual pieces of action that ultimately pull together and accomplish something for the greater good. In my opinion, you kind of just roughshod just all over the place, and that where if you can formalize these and when we set action items of whatever it may be, and knowing that, okay, this goes specifically under the culture and climate one, this goes specifically under A, B, C, or D, that helps funnel those actions up to achieving what the goals are here, so. And same thing with the staff, and others in the district, that you're always working to with the intent of satisfying the goals that are laid out in this formal document.
I went a little more
really help us sell that.
detail of each of the goals in my answer, and was like, goal 1, we have to allocate the proper resources so that we have high academic achievement. And as we're allocating resources and doing budgeting and reviewing what comes before the board, I try to keep that in mind so that we can allocate the proper resources. Because we're the ones in the end who authorize the expenditure of money. Goal 2, we hired a new superintendent and 2 new administrators this summer that are very good at achieving goal 2 or improving goal 2. Number 3, communication. We need to continue to utilize that department that we have to make sure that we have effective communication. 4, fiscal responsibility. We continue to review numbers, financial numbers, such as we had Piper Jaffray up a couple weeks ago for the finance committee, and we review financial data all the time. Plus, I put in that we can't let Terry retire because she's such a good business manager. And that's a goal, to keep her on. And then facilities for educational excellence. We need to kick phase 2 in gear and just get it done.
Well, I think doing that facilities assessment.
Will assist. Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to pull everybody together for that. And Missy, I'm grateful you asked your question early on. Is this it? Is there room? Do we update it? What's that process like? And I think part of that is you all, as a board and a district, need to land on that in terms of moving forward. What's going to be most helpful to you? For many districts, they'll cast a 4 or 5 year longer term plan, and then they're coming back every year or 2 and saying, is this stuff still pertinent? Do we have some tweaking to do? But is the big picture still pertinent? And hopefully, if they did a good job of setting it, the bigger picture, that thread does hold true over multiple years. But, a technology, a societal thing that can happen that we weren't planning on can cause an impact. So I think that's part of, you control your own fate here in terms of, are these still pertinent? Do we need tweaking, updating, that sort of thing? Part of what I'm hoping to kind of flesh out from this is, are these, the 5 areas in the boxes, are those big chunks, those long-term goals, still the right things for Mike to be focusing his leadership over the next year or 2? That's really where the questions take us. So I'd be curious to hear from you guys. What do you think about that? Are these big areas still the right kind of areas for him to have on his radar screen as he moves forward in the future? Again, you may tweak, you may adapt or adjust. What's your gut up on that? Are these still important areas to keep moving forward?
I believe so,
Yeah.
I think that, there's a lot of time I had to put into this, and it wasn't too recently, it was pretty recently completed, but, and again, the strategies, the individual things that are listed here will, I can see that for sure fluctuate year to year, but effectively the goals that are put up there are pretty standard in that we continue towards.
And I think because of the way that this information was compiled and gathered, these aren't ideas that were just come to existence based on Dr. Cox's thoughts. This is based off of information that's collected as a whole. But his was just a small part of it. So I do believe that these are things that we just will might possibly take one of these and maybe be a little more aggressive than others, because it might fit better, that's possible. But I also think that that's where taxing others, individuals, then to take up those areas, which is what Dan did too. I can, for one, can go right to the effective communication where we start talking about maintaining Yes, but, you know, that's not for the superintendent to be doing that, but it's, for just other teachers, like they're doing that.
So other staff or people may be leaning into one or more of these areas more heavily.
Yes.
All right, that makes sense. As two newer board members, as you look at these 5 goal areas, just your gut level reaction or impression in terms of, are these areas worthy? Does it make sense long-term to keep pushing forward around these 5 big areas?
Yeah, I mean, I believe so. You know, I think we've seen that, you know, culture and climate for sure is definitely something that we certainly would like to improve on. You know, looking at facilities, looking at phase 2. So, yeah, I think that they all are still very important. Like Jason said, this wasn't that long ago. That the staff was put together. So.
Josh,
Yeah, I would agree. I would say that recently, you know, through the last year, we've had some information on areas that we could do better at, and they directly align with some of the specific goals that we have already been set. And, you know, as we move through these and look at the strategies that we thought in 2017, those strategies might need to be adapted for 2018 or 2019 to achieve the goals or the indicators of success that we thought in 2017 would show up. So I think while the goal itself is a great start, some of the strategies and indicators of success will need to move a little bit as we move through this process. You know, it's kind of like the law; it's a living document, but it's very stable. It's ever changing.
that's, thanks both of you for sharing. That's probably where the art or the science of the updating comes in the smaller chunks, the strategies and the along the way pieces, which you can be more likely to have data and information, so you get a better sense. Do we have wind in our sails when we're making progress? And you can maneuver and tweak and make adjustments quicker. But the phrase I wrote down that you said, Josh, is that the data information you've received over the past year that might shed some light on areas to concentrate at, you still see those nesting or fitting under within these larger goal areas, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, makes sense.
I perceive I look at these goals and I always think, these may never change. What changes is what follows the leader, is what are actions.
Right.
Looking at some of these pages, you know, I hope by year 22, this entire page is not a single one of these that exists on this page that we haven't, we're going to replace with something different.
Mike, your thoughts as you heard the board react around the strategic plan and the big goals?
That's right where, you know, I'm at. I look at it as the roadmap, but sometimes getting the destination might take a detour. So as I look at like culture and climate, promote positive interactions between and among students, staff, and community through, that's like non-negotiable. I mean, but this is Orange Frog program. You know, as we work with our leadership, we might hear from our staff that Orange Frog is or is not working. And if it's not working, you know, maybe we just have to put a little more weight into it. That's okay. Or maybe it's, no, we need to find a better tool. You know, we know a better tool. So, you know, I see a lot of those pieces, you know, being really interchangeable. Even the facilities, I see that interchangeable too. And moving us into that, you know, by 2022, a task force can be developed long-range plan for elementary education. I can already say we're already in that path. And it'll be long before 2022, especially with the Estes work that we're going to do, that those discussions will start. So that's exciting for me. That again, Dr. Cox did some tremendous work, as you all did, to really make a really living, breathing document. I just want to make sure it continues to live and breathe, and that it's not. So I'll be honest, I went around and asked some staff, "Do you go to strategic planners?" And strategic group, and I said, "Yeah." So that told me that I've got to do a better job with our leadership, making sure that people are working in sync with this, and maybe creating a at-a-glance document.
Updates.
An update document.
Spreadsheet or something
Yeah.
that indicates where we are, if there's been movement, because there's some of these things that we know are closer to the long range, but there's some of these, like you said, that are being talked about now,
Yeah.
active now.
And in most organizations, I'm just restating the obvious, it takes a while to to gain traction and where goals or priorities work its way out across the whole system where it gets some momentum. So that's not an unusual piece.
And it could be that these were, the information was compiled, it was presented, and we're done. And so it's short-term contact with it, and it's form.
One of the things Mike and I talked about a little bit, and as I was planning for tonight, is what I watch happen in districts that are able to get long, sustained traction around goals. They'll keep dabbling and figure out ways to keep the goals out in front of all the stakeholders. You as a board, as well as staff, and that's one of the things where his pen was moving pretty fast. And he talked about some strategies, but that would be a key piece that can be helpful moving forward. How can report, and that's no judgment passed on, because I don't know what you did before, but anything that Mike can do and you can do as a board to keep those goals in front of yourselves with some sort of regularity. When reports come, when staff members share things, whenever we can, continue to link them back to the goals. So then let's do this, because Mike already started to go there. A couple of you mentioned that. On the left side was a light colored blue sheet. I'm just going to ask you to pull that out, because one of the things we talked about on the front end is giving pretty strong consideration for Mike's goals in relationship to your district goals. So the only head start thing I gave Mike for tonight, I said, just look at these 5 big goal areas. Mike, we don't know what the board's going to say about those goals. You said, yeah, they're still pertinent. What I asked him to think about as he looks at those 5 big goal areas, this was a little bit ago, there may be places that he dives into, leans into heavier, and engages other staff, you, others in some of those ones. So I asked him, just be ready to talk as you look at these goals, which ones strike you first impressions from your entry plan and getting to know people here? Which ones do you speculate or forecast you probably would lean into more heavily this next year?
Well, I've been speculating it'd be culture and climate and facility. Finding that culture and climate is foundational, that we really can't do the other things until that's in good shape. You know, we can focus on high academic achievement, which is the forefront of what we do, but if we are turning over staff constantly, if people are in bad moods or in good places, if the kids' behaviors aren't in good spots, I just don't see where, you know, it's kind of like throwing a, you know, like bailing on a boat that has a leak in it. And so we have to focus on those things first. And then the facilities, we just have a lot of big things with facilities that some unfinished business and some new business coming up. So that was my 2 biggest ones. And then one that was a little different from this was, one of my goals I felt would be learning the job. You know, learning how to be superintendent, getting out and meeting people and understanding, because I can't be effective if I don't know the conditions on the ground. I'm speculating. And so that's why getting out and meeting people, meeting Harry, building my mentoring network. What I had shared with you, I've mentored now about 25 different people throughout the state, just cold calling, hey, can I pick your brain, can I ask you about specific things? So that was my fortune telling, trying to read your minds.
So I'd ask you, so he's mentioned the culture, climate, facilities, learning the job, that he would, he's feeling the advantages and the need to lean into those more heavily. What questions do you have about his line of thinking? How's that strike you? What information would better help you understand why he's thinking that way? Just a chance to try to reaffirm. What do you think? What do you wonder about him when he says that?
I expect a lot of it's the result of conversations he's had with either us as individuals or together or board meetings or the things that you know, we have the last few years looked at the culture and climate stuff as and teaming it to be foundational is right on, in my opinion. That's what I've always thought all along, is that we have to have a great environment for our employees for them to effectively do their job, and that, you know, again, meets that goal of higher academic achievement. So to hear him say that and to see, I mean, it is a recognition of him seeing and understanding or processing the things that we've talked about or the things that we've put emphasis onto in the last couple of years' time as a board. with Dr. Cox prior to him and now with him too. So facilities have been an issue in this district for 10 years, you know, and they're going to be for another 10 years. But that's kind of just an ongoing general thing that I would expect to show up in all of these meetings. But the culture and climate thing really has been an important one to me. I have a wife that's a teacher, you know, so that's one of the things I hear and see daily. So that's been a big one, and I appreciate the emphasis on it from Mike.
What other board members, what your thoughts were? Questions, reactions?
I think part of what he's planning on bringing to the forefront and working on, in what the conversation he just had, comes from when he applied for the job here, and he talked to people that did work here. Even the interview process, you know, those interviews were held in private, but some of the questions were leading into areas that we as a board felt that we needed someone to step up and take over.
You're looking for a match.
We were looking
for somebody.
we
to
were
obtain
looking
this
for
goal,
somebody
and
who
that's why
could-
Mike is here,
Yes.
because He come to the forefront of this goal, for this goal. This is-
And he's a smart individual. He picked up on our questions right away. He knew where we were leading.
Well, and quite honestly, that's why I also said yes. You know, it's a
Right.
district that my strengths and passions match maybe a district need. You know, why other districts might need something else, a new sheriff in town, or this really laser focus on mathematical strategy. That wouldn't be a good fit for my strengths. And so
Right.
I felt like it was a good match.
And we could tell that through the interview process. But it's all coming to fruition, and the things that we talked about 5 months ago
Yes.
in looking towards the new superintendent, he's working on those things that we had talked about in closed session.
And it might, you may by now, or when we finish tonight, you may be going, dang, we just kind of reaffirmed a lot of things from the interview and what we thought. It ought to, that ought to be part of the purpose of tonight, because a lot can happen in 5 or 6 months. I just watch districts across the state where some things are talked about in an interview in that whole process, but there's different priorities by the fall. And so it's reaffirming, what is it you're hoping to accomplish? And again, laying it beside your goals, your strategic plan, so.
We know as a group, it wasn't easy to decide, to make that decision. We did. It was a great discussion. I was here last Friday when Mike gave his opening 15-minute, and I wanted to call you all right away and say we made the right choice.
Did anybody
He's
record that?
exactly what we need. It's exactly what we need. And it all relates to this goal right here.
Well, and I think just hearing, you know, what people are saying, not just staff, but people around town, the great things that they're saying about Mike, seeing him out in the community, and you know, you asked what questions you had for him. And
Yeah.
honestly, I don't have a whole lot, because I think he does such a good job of communicating with us and letting us know where he's at with things. So that's one thing that I really appreciate too, is transparency.
I appreciate you guys having to block my cell phone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's, they're little, they're all important things, but even the conversation tonight about should we tape the work session or not, it's not as common. Work sessions aren't taped as frequently, and his comment was, this gives anybody that wants a chance to hear the conversation to be able to access it. So back to your comment about transparency and fostering that. Josh, your take on the culture and climate, the facilities, and learning the job, how do those areas hit you?
I think when Mike arrived, he had some ideas in his mind on how he was going to tackle some things. And to his credit, he sat back and listened a lot before he made any striking large changes across the district. And we know realistically he hasn't made any huge major changes that are going to do anything. But he listened not only to what the board wanted, but what the community wanted and what the faculty and staff wanted. So he got a good picture of the district, and then he kind of gleaned out some of those things. Goal 2 was one of those things that was a big topic that he was some massaging and some comforting, and he took that and was really starting to work on that. You know, and it was evident when Ron mentioned, when he talked to his opening, you know, all the faculty came back, you know, energized and excited for school and very positive, and that was something that was really beneficial, that showed and reaffirmed that Mike was the right decision for the district, and had, as he mentioned, you know, we have a need and he has a strength, and those match up, you know, very, very well and line up. I think facilities is another thing, you know, people want to see us moving things forward, and making sure that when our students in whatever building, it has the most coolest, best technology and facilities, and so I think that's something that we want to strive to do, and you know, this is a good example of that. It was a 21st century school. Will be at least for another couple of years until another one, right?
That's right.
So,
And
very much.
I would just underscore one of Mike's comments is, of course, the backdrop is school learning, but what's the biggest lever you have as a district to improve kids' learning? It's your staff and the teachers and the folks that interact with these kids every day. So the more engaged, the stronger the learning culture and the ethic is around equipping, supporting, and helping kids to learn. When that gets into place, it's like the old leading and lagging indicators. The leading ones are what the adults are doing, and the lagging indicators, what comes next, impact on kids. And that's what you're describing here. So it makes good sense. Let's flip the blue sheet over for a minute. Just not a full sentence, but just picture yourself answering this. So if our superintendent leans pretty heavily into culture climate, leans pretty heavy into facilities and learning his job, what are your best hopes if that's where those are high priority leverage areas for him to focus on? What are your best hopes if he leans into those things? And any concerns you have? Your biggest concerns, anyway, but the biggest, but concerns. So if he leans into those areas, best hopes, any concerns? Questions or whatever? Either of these are left blank, it's okay too. Are you okay? I didn't ask this either direction. Sorry. Are you okay with putting your name on the blue sheet here? I'd be interested in a copy of these two, and I can kind of refer as I.
You want to start on the money?
Yeah. Somebody else is making it interesting for me. What the heck?
So you're planning on compiling these and sharing them with Mike, or are you
No, I'm-
looking at them for us, or?
Yeah, for you all, really all 6 of you. What I would look at as Mona, I would look through these and just kind of try to extract out, revisit the themes and stuff.
Okay,
And to be able to then send back and say, here are the kinds of things that are your best hopes. Here are the kinds of things that you want to keep your eye on here. So
You're gonna need an interpreter to read this.
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
After reading my handwriting.
chicken
thanks
scratch.
It's not good.
Thanks for clarifying, Scott. Good question.
But the final report doesn't have any.
No, it's not gonna have a name of
No.
anybody or anything.
That's fine.
It's gonna just be the big themes. Give you something, I'll send you a follow-up letter in a couple weeks, so you've
Great.
got something concrete to reflect on this conversation. Yeah. And as soon as we share these, we're at 47 minutes, and we're about a little over half done, so I'm on target for the 90
Excellent.
minutes. So. All right, so best hopes, just real quickly around the table. Give each other a sense what popped up there. So if he leans into those areas.
I'm a metrics kind of guy, I like data and seeing that stuff, and that's what we pushed a survey, staff survey here last spring, and my best hopes is to see significant improvement the next time we give that to our staff. So a number of different categories or specific areas of concern that were, that came to the top in that staff survey. I think if we're really doing a good job of improving the culture and climate, that we'll see significant improvement in that results of that survey.
Good. Somebody else, your best hopes?
Mine was more broad, I just said a major shift in the culture in the district. Just overall, you know, people communicating better, working together, different departments. Yeah.
Mine was even more broader.
Okay.
If all of those things work out, we should move to a successful bond vote in 2019.
Well, I have that.
Okay, well,
That's maybe a little more specific in mind. That's building an understanding with bargaining unit. Not totally the districts, there was some do, and other parts of the.
Sure. And that's a hard one, given what happened with the legislature and the economic times we're in and all those sort of things. There's some pretty big factors there. Josh?
I just said, don't make our district as a destination to drive families to want to come and bring their children to Charleston.
Mike, how you?
I wrote some describers: happy, warm, friendly, kind, invitational. And really it drives down to this improved retention and turnover, because everything I look through is the human resources frame. If you've got great people, that solves all the problems. They take care of it. So attract outstanding candidates, also someone with great. And we have phase 2. And I guess I can synthesize this and use the wrong word to use, but I want to build an army of incredible adults and serve our kids. I want to stay here forever.
Great. Biggest concerns, and if that wording is too strong, it might just be, I wonder, or I pause as I think about, whatever language you want to use. I tend to put the more language stronger that would draw a reaction, just to get people talking. So any concerns or you wonder about, given him leaning into the goal areas he's described, and I hear consensus around those. So, any concerns, questions, cautions? What'd you say?
I think with going off of what Mike just said, not that it necessarily will be a bad thing, but just the task of possibly having to replace multiple staff as culture and climate improves and people who maybe do not fit what our district is leave. And so we're faced with multiple positions that we have to fill.
Or the controversial topic of staff that may no longer, I won't say, phrase that appropriately, I guess, but, you change people, I've heard a number of times, and, that's not always easy. It can be difficult, and that's not necessarily a concern, but something to look at, like, okay, that could be a tough time to get through in particular instances.
And one of those keys is in any kind of change or transformation, there's likely to be a variance in reactions and comfort. So it isn't like you have to wait until you encounter that. You can speculate, forecast. There may be some side effects, whatever language you want to call, and kind of as a board and soup, just be ready for that. It shouldn't catch you off guard, right? Just be ready for it.
the administration can tell in staff meetings, faculty meetings, whatever, as they move forward with initiatives, body language, eye rolling, whatever, which staff are on board and which staff need hand holding or extra information so that they can buy into a program.
Yeah.
We don't have to wait for resignations to come because people have looked for other jobs.
That's right.
The human resource angle, they're all bright people. They can tell those things as we go through weekly meetings and things going on in the building. So
That's nice.
they've got a pretty good handle on that whole situation as far as I'm concerned.
It's nicely stated and diplomatic in terms of that. No, I'm serious. It really, that's exactly right. Other concerns, cautions, whatever, what else made your list?
I just put general stagnation in moving our progressive agenda. Basically, I think the last 4, 5, 6, 7 years we've done a lot of very progressive things. I think, I've only lived in this community 8 years, but looking at the previous several decades, there seems to be very few highlights of really progressive things that were accomplished compared to the last 4 or 5 years. And moving that forward, continuing that is important.
And I think mine piggybacks onto yours is that we have only set a pace. And is keeping that pace an unrealistic expectation. That's my biggest concern. I don't believe it is, but we have a lot of things that we need to have done with urgency, it feels like.
Yeah. And so, again, not for tonight, but again, you can speculate, trying to navigate that pace. Is it fast enough? In some ways, you might feel like it's not fast enough, but recognizing that if staff aren't at that same spot, that's when you start to get the pushback or discomfort. And how do you work your way through that? Way you keep it on the table and talk about it. And that, it's your friend.
We are a governmental entity, and anything in government takes forever to get done, and it goes slowly. As a general broad term, and I don't want to get bogged down with too many forks in the road or detours. I want to keep moving forward on whatever our top priorities are.
Keep them.
Yeah, they need to keep moving forward.
And that's why we started, just to amen, hallelujah, that with the strategic plan again. If that's the dice you rolled, the stronger dice your plan, then we can continue to reaffirm that. And yes, you can tweak it and fix it, but continue, ride that horse loud and clear so it's not a secret, right? And keep with it. Anything else?
Is this on our website?
It is,
Okay.
yeah, it is.
It is, and maybe it is something as simple as maybe these need to be, I can see them posted on our tables in front of our board tables for the board meetings. So every time you watch us on channel, whatever, you're looking at our goals that are set.
Yes.
These board meetings, this is why these are happening, because these goals are
Yes.
set.
And I bet all $20 in my wallet that if you think of your board meetings and workshops as a pathway, as your venue to publicize and keep the goals in front of yourselves and others, it will happen. And that, I'm sure you've been doing that already, but think about doubling the effort on that. Let's continue to think strategically about that's our arena, that's our pathway. How do we keep the goals and everything we do, budgeting, whatever. ICAT, Estes is up here reminding yourselves and your community, this is directly linked up with goal number 5, long-term planning for facilities. And later in the year, you have 3 middle school teachers or the high school science department come in to share about something with professional development. Link it back up with that culture and climate. Here's what we're doing to strengthen instruction and better equip our staff so that we're teaching in more powerful ways. Whatever it might be, keep going back to those goals.
Have you got an agenda from a recent meeting you pulled out?
I'm looking for one of the past that Dan.
Good.
That would say aligns with goals.
Yes, and maybe we should be reading those.
Well,
as opposed
are
to
those,
just-
my question was gonna be, are those goals that we have on our agenda, aren't they are they related to ISB goals, or are they related to the district
Let's
goals?
just put one on the last agenda that we had before tonight, the one we had last Monday.
Yeah.
Well,
Aligned with board goals of high academic achievement, effective communications, culture, climate,
Fiscal
environment,
responsibility.
fiscal responsibility. So they do, so maybe it does
Yeah,
become
this-
something that we need to
We are.
verbalize.
Yeah,
There
so
are
you've got that
times.
going, just continue
In
to
a meeting,
capitalize on it.
it's always there on it, but we don't read it.
there are times it has been aligned to ISB board standards as well.
Yes.
At times,
Yes.
like, typically we wanted to come back to, I can tell from Dan's work, he wanted to come back to the strategic focus area.
Well, originally, before we had this document, we started putting the ISB goals on our agenda because we went to one of your meetings in New Hampton where they talked about it. And so we picked up on that, and then I would, yeah, that now we've started to incorporate these goals into our agenda items, as well as some of the larger ISB goals for
Make-
boards and
Makes sense, it's
districts.
another good fit or a way to just take it next step forward and elevate something. And I think you're right, that sometimes just a statement about one of them. Doesn't
Well,
have to be like necessarily reading all the goals, but saying, this piece tonight, thank you, was a cornerstone of our meeting tonight, and it links right up with our goal on facilities. It links with the goal on student achievement. Just, what's the old saying, people have to hear things 7 or 70 times how many it is, just to get it out there in front of folks.
Well, it's just, a suggestion would be if we can get these signs made up and put on the front of our tables, and then as we're going through an agenda item, we refer to, and this relates to goal number 3. As people are watching TV, then they can, that's our visual.
Usually there's 2 or 3 big ticket items on the agenda that we can relate to the goals.
Yes, that's,
You know, there's always the every meeting stuff of consent agendas and approving minutes and going over financial reports, but we should be able to pick out 2 or 3 things out of every meeting.
if you just spent 90 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours at a meeting, that's exactly right. Wouldn't you hope at least 1 or 2
Yeah.
things you did tonight, right? That's exactly right. But what I'm driving at, you get that. What I'm talking about is emphasizing it so your community and staff.
Correct.
Right, yes.
Just get,
Correct.
it's shining. They couldn't miss it if they wanted to. Anything else you'd add, Mona? Mona had a number of years as board president. Anything else you want to add about the visibility of goals and an effort? Any insights?
Yeah, our experience was, there's probably gonna be the lightning rod and the big thing that maybe is getting community attention. But you can accomplish a whole lot at the same time, that the outcomes of those are not gonna be realized. Maybe you know, you get just going on the board. But people can look back and say, you know, the board was doing more than just handling those nasty facility issues,
Yes.
which is truly a community issue. And you gotta lead it. But the board issue is student achievement, culture in the schools, supporting the staff.
Yeah.
So I think of the work that you did with the strategic plan. I think of the work that you did with mission and vision, and the work we're doing currently with the core values, and how impactful that will be, and how big of a tool that'll be for us for culture and climate. But yet, you know, there's not 100 people lined up to do public speaking. Sometimes it's those subtle things that are the most impactful.
So then, let's change gears in this last half hour and link it back to superintendent evaluation. And right before that, I'm going to ask you 2 quick questions, or a statement and a question. So the statement is, what I would encourage you to do is at an upcoming board meeting, just, make it official, the areas he's going to lean into, and officially sanction that as a board, yep. The culture and climate, and the facilities, and his own learning as a SOUP are high priorities for his work this year. Just seal a deal on that. That would be one thing. And then the other piece would be asking you, Josh, you sit on the front end, how will this link up with what you did last spring? And I said I'd come back and ask you partway through. I don't know what this first hour, if it linked up at all with what you did previously. You want to react to that, or any of you can?
Not yet, but I think you're going there
Going
now.
back next.
With what I assume Josh Jefferson was when we went through the process of Dan's evaluation and the goals that were, his professional development goal, that whole,
There's he didn't work on.
that thing, which is kind of a confusing and difficult process for us. For me, not knowing, well, of course, Dan brought it to us all filled out and everything, and like, okay, yeah, we agree with all these things, and whatever. It was just an awkward process.
Here's, and you can relate to this, because Mona, about 10 years ago, when she was board president, I had this kind of phone call. And then let's look at a couple tools. One of the things that can happen, and we're not where we need to be as a state yet, the instrument, there isn't one state official instrument. ISB and school administrators developed one. We're going to go back a couple different hybrids of it, and it's clunky. And the shorter version is better than the longer one, but it's still not there. So let's look at a couple of these and see if that may be helpful to you. And then the other piece is you have more latitude, boards do, in a sense, than probably the state's led boards to believe. So on the right-hand side of your materials, pull out these two documents, the one that's kind of a light buff, it's not really ivory, I don't know what color you call it, in the gray, pull those two out. And we're only going to look at one section of this buff sheet, but I'm going to encourage you to think about this as a tool that may be discussing any of these areas here proactively this fall, early on, the next 3-4 months. You can pick an area, talk about it with Mike some, might be a helpful step, kind of onboarding for him and you. And you don't have to look any further, and you've probably already tackled a bunch of these, but look at like 1D. If you've had that conversation, cool. If you haven't, just have a short conversation with Mike. What do you call important items that you're hopeful get communicated with you? Look at 1E. How have you done business around that? You get your agenda, you get the packet, you got questions. What's Mike's preferences? If you've talked about that already, cool. If you haven't, makes sense. It's an ideal time to do that the next couple months rather than wait till you bump into issues. Okay, now let's go back to area 5. It's on the 3rd page. I just want to tackle a couple of these, and then let's look at what the law says and a couple tools that might help make this more board friendly. I know a thing I forgot earlier. When I said we're not where we need to be as a state yet, there's this kind of this awkward dance of superintendents across the state compile their artifacts and evidence and bring those to share with the board. But then the conversation you and I had 10 years ago when you said, but when does the board bring its voice into this rather than being told by the soup and reacting? How do we have a chance, right? You want to shed a little bit of light on that? Any additional thoughts about that?
Yeah, so that form was developed while I was on board, and which was an improvement, but the more you worked with it, you thought, the superintendent can lead this the way
They want
they want it to go, and we may not have that necessary conversation.
So we're going to look at a one-page tool in a couple of minutes that should open the door, so I'll help you out on that. It may be the smartest thing I've ever contributed at ISB, a one-page. Talk about one-pager. But let's just look at number 5 for a minute. And almost all of you were going like this when Mona was talking. How do we help make superintendent evaluation a two-way street and more board-centric? So you have a chance to bring your voice into it. So, A and B, can a couple of you just very quickly describe, in whatever, 2 minutes or less, what's the process been like in the past? Not specifics on former SUPE's evaluation, but the process. What was it like in the past?
So I remember, I guess, one of the first times that we really worked a little bit harder to have a board voice was we did work to have a lot more input on the goals and objectives for that. And we did have that conversation a couple of years ago, and that's when the culture and climate and morale thing really first kind of came in, along with, of course, the continuation of the other facilities things and whatever else. But we started to have that, and we kind of went through that at a board meeting or two, which worked its way into the superintendent's evaluation process. But with that, it then was the superintendent's responsibility to pull together all the information associated with that. So here's your goal, but here's the indicators of success, I guess you could say, and here's the ultimate outcome, and here's the tools used, and this and that. And we felt as though we judged the performance based on what the information, solely the information that was given, you know. And we were led, you know.
Right, how do we bring our perceptions
Yeah.
more strongly into, that's where I'm saying it's a two-way
Yes.
street. I mean,
And
it makes, yeah.
And not in a negative way, it just felt awkward and clunky.
Sure,
You
yeah.
know, it's not- It did, in my opinion. So.
And what you're saying is not unique to you guys.
And sometimes you can't come to an answer or a finality of a goal in 1 year.
Yes.
You know, it takes 2 or 3 years to change culture and climate. It may take 2 or 3 years to improve a district's financial situation. Not that ours is in that category, but I'm just using
Could be,
that
yeah,
as
a good
as an
example.
example, because you can't go from a negative 500,000 to positive 500,000 in 1 year if that was the case. So multiple things that the superintendent would have on as goals may take more than 1 or 2 years. And it's just when we have the meetings in June to evaluate the final evaluation of the year, you know, it's, here's what we've done so far, here's as far as we've gotten, here's the work that we have planned to do for the next year. Can be an answer.
And so take that as an example of culture and climate. If that may be something he focuses on the next 2-3 years or longer, but getting to a point where he can describe to you, what does that look like in 2018-19? And then what's the next step in 2019-20 and 2021, those chipping away at that longer term goal of improving the culture and climate.
Building on an example of that is the culture and climate thing, and what we had given Dan was, okay, this is the goal, and then he set forth some action items which included Orange Frog. And, so we gave him the opportunity to implement that, went through it, I personally heard varying reports of success with that program within the buildings as to whether it was or was not affecting positively our culture and climate in the buildings. I had no metrics to be able to evaluate our superintendent on that because they didn't exist. When we went through some of that and looking for a way to find a metric to help evaluate those things, came to the survey that we put out for the staff. So just kind of all of that kind of pulling together of not just an evaluation of the superintendent, which it was, with the goal that was given, but also what's going on in the district.
Yeah, what reflection of the broader district.
Yeah.
Yeah, good for you that you keep that in mind. Because one score on one thing isn't going to tell everything on his leadership, just like one kid's Iowa assessment score isn't the sum total of their life of learning.
Yeah.
It's a piece, but it's only one thing.
Yeah.
All right. We'll come back with some of these. I think your expectations and goals, you come back, we've talked about the 3 areas tonight, culture, climate, right? The facilities can lean into his own learning. One of the things I would suggest there is that if you're comfortable with this, to just say, Mike, over the next couple of weeks or month, you lean into what are some of those indicators that the board might expect, and bring them some idea. They don't have to be the only piece, but give them something to react to in terms of indicators of your impact or success around culture, climate, facilities, your own learning. And that'll help you with C&D on this section. And then you guys can react to it. I'm not trying to circumvent and say, Mike, you just decide on one, you live with it. But I just, to be honest, I find it's not a fair arena always to say to board members, you all brainstorm these indicators. It's the day in which world he lives, got to bring you something to react to. If the smell test smells okay, cool. If something's missing, change it up. Make sense?
Would that be a regular rhythm in a board meeting, for example? What would that look like?
To talk about the indicators?
Yeah.
I think the law allows you, relative to your evaluation, to have the conversation in open or closed session. So you can set it however you want to. If you want to move into the indicators in closed session, the soup is in the driver's seat. They get to say, I'd like closed session. If you prefer to send ideas out another way in weekly memo or notes, so they've got something to react to and then come back and talk about it, you can have that conversation more than one way, if that makes sense. Then let's change gears to the grade for a minute, circle back. I like simple is better for me. Over in the text box on the first page, these are the two big areas off to the left, first page. The law says, not Harry, not ISB. The law says you evaluate him based on these two things: how he's doing on the standards and how he's doing on his goals. And by the way, those aren't two silos. I mean, in my mind, the goals you talked about tonight spill over into these standards. And if you turn to the next page, you have to follow the law, but if the next couple tools don't work for you, pitch them, do something else. I'm just trying to boil down the thinking I've learned the last 6-7 years with board teachers. The standards are on this page. And at the top, just put a little star by number 1. These are really the two big questions you're charged with reflecting on. Top of the page, how is he doing in relation to these standards? How is he doing in relation to his goals? The text boxes, this is the second piece, and I've got good feedback. So maybe I've got 2 one-pagers that are helping boards and soups. These text boxes are what I call everyday language. More board-friendly than stuff on the right side. Just skim those text boxes for me. And I'd ask you this. If he leans more heavily into the facilities area, which one or more of these text boxes or standards is it already linked up with? Trying to help with the silo effect.
Which one isn't it?
Yeah, it's gonna, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
If you were gonna say, you're betting the $20 in your wallet, and you said, here's a couple of standards that it probably hangs with pretty most strongly, which standards would you say? Okay, yep, number 3, that would be my thinking. It links with that. Anything else? I mean, yes, it does impact learning, etc. You might say it's connecting better with family or an advocacy for the district. I mean, or you might say number 2, it's really top-notch. This building was developed, right, to have a strong impact on kids' learning. So you might say, gee, leaning into facilities is really pretty strongly tied to standards 2 and 3. Now, instead of having to evaluate him on some tool where you feel like you got to get feedback on his goals, you got to get feedback on the standards, you do a 2 for 1. And you say, gee, if we agree that facilities really ties pretty tightly with standards 2 and 3, that's going to be a big chunk. We're going to tackle 2 birds with 1 stone. Those 2 standards and that goal, they're kind of a lot alike. Make life easier for you. Now, go to that other goal, culture and climate. And yep, it probably cuts across all these. Do you see, if you're a betting person, do you see the culture and climate leading more heavily or syncing up more heavily with one or more of these standards?
Number 2.
And why? That makes sense to me. How come?
Well, it says right in there, sustaining school culture, being a good leader, advocating.
Yep. Any others? Thank you.
Culture and climate would be part of standard 5. Honesty,
Yeah.
integrity, and fairness. Because if you're none of those, you don't have a good culture and climate.
Yeah, that's right. So here's what I'm driving at. While the law says you have to evaluate him in any suit on these 6 standards and their goals, the law doesn't say there are 6 standards. You're going to spend 13% of your feedback equally on each of these 6 standards. So what does that allow you to be able to do if he's got goals that really sync up pretty heavily with 2 and 3? And and sum of 5 are the same. Now, that's really drive like, you know what, double toothpicks around, most heavily around those 3 standards, or those 2 standards. You still have to give him feedback and meet the intent of the law across all 6 standards, but you can lean more heavily as a board into feedback around 2 or 3 of those standards and the goals that link up with it. And in the 2 years, reset goals, 1 year, 3 years, and do the same thing. Pull this out and say, which standards do our, imagine when the culture and climate has really gotten a lot of momentum and you're now changing gears to one of these other goals areas, the student achievement one, or the fiscal responsibility. You can designate which standards will sync up. Does that help provide a little more sanity and not have this be quite this big process that ends up feeling bigger in life and it's not more friendly? Does that help some? Some, it's not everything. Okay.
Because I think I would like to see them, how it's presented to us. So how are the different ways that districts are doing it? How are they presenting it to people? Are they presenting it as we were presented with the 6 standards? And then how each one of those would be met?
Got it.
We used your ISB short
You
version.
did, okay. And I've got a newer one that's even shorter.
That was like 19 pages long.
Yeah, now there's a new shorter one that's 6 pages.
There you go.
And
I
we're
like
still
that.
working to shorten. So play that out for me. And I know I'm talking more this part than you are, sorry. It's trying to just efficiency, get info out. So you've already, we just said, those goal areas hit pretty heavily on standards 2, 3, and some 5. So maybe part of your, and you just clarify that as an expectation. Mike, when you do a reflection with us, anytime you do during the year, make dang sure that you're clearly focusing on which standards, 2, 3, some of 5, because it syncs up with those goals. And you might be able to do updates of other things that aren't quite as heavy duty in weekly notes and less frequently. That'd be one way to do it. Some boards have done this when they get to the summary. They said to the superintendent, it's probably, you want to look at your policy because chances are you probably have a policy on the superintendent. But they've done it like this. They've had the superintendent in March kind of do his big picture, her big picture, summary of accomplishments. And the board's had a month or 2 to think that over, and then the board's providing their feedback. So it's informed. He had a chance to speak, but it wasn't the pressure of him talking, and then you either agreeing or disagreeing that night. Give yourself, that's one source of informing you, but then you take some time to think through the other ways.
And we've started to work towards that as a goal. I think the last year or 2, we'd started to have 3 or 4 different sessions where we would go into closed session with the superintendent and say we're going to discuss evaluation. So
That's it. Yes.
where do you as the superintendent think you need to come down and work on as a district? Where does the board think? And then in 3 months,
Bingo.
4 months, we come back and say, this is what we have, this is what I'm working on. Do you have feedback? Another 3, 4 months. This is where we're at again. Formal evaluation is coming up in 3 or 4 months. We need more feedback. Am I getting into an area that more districts are actually starting to work on so
Yes,
that we all
it's-
feel comfortable with this
Yes.
process?
It's
Okay.
emerging, but we got a ways to go. So go to the last gray sheet. This is the one where I said I've gotten more feedback on how this has been helpful in places it's gotten traction. If you don't like it, change it up. I don't care. We built this about 4 or 5 years ago because having a conversation with another board soup like we are tonight, and they just said that instrument is bigger than life, whether it's 12 or 6 pages. It's not user friendly. So we did this. So these 3 goals, they're no secret. Culture and climate. What's the next one? Facilities and his own learning the job. They're right there. And you've got the standards on the prior page, and we've already you've already said that his goals really sync up pretty heavily with standards 2, 3, and 5.
Let's back up to the standards for just a second,
Please.
because I would question on these standards. These are standards that are set by the state for us to judge a superintendent of, but the superintendent doesn't have to equally hit each one of these standards.
Bingo. There's nothing in the law that says you have to
Right.
split it evenly.
And that's where we haven't been informed. We've had the understanding that each one of these standards,
Was weighted equally.
Got it. Got it.
so there has been a lot of misunderstanding
No,
and
I,
confusion
A couple of months
on our
ago,
part, because
well, I don't think we've done a good job like
No.
we need to help clarify that either.
I could use a whole workshop on just this page right here.
It's a fair point, and you're right.
Because I know you guys don't understand them, because we've had absolutely no talk about these whatsoever. So they make sense in relation to what we're even talking about right now.
Right, so,
the other thing I was gonna say though is, you have an ISB workshop online that you recorded that goes over superintendent
In
evaluation.
December.
yes,
And
yes.
Robin and I watched that together a few months ago,
It's a little bit of a-
and light bulbs
Yeah,
were
okay.
going off all over the
That's what we
place.
need to have.
And the awareness of what it is we can do versus
Yes.
where we've been.
Yes.
And so if you haven't seen that workshop that's
It's probably worth
online,
45 minutes or an hour of your time.
it's about an hour-long workshop, but it was,
And the board president and superintendent from Carroll participated. So play with me on this, because, thank you, Robin, spot on. Play this out. 2, 3 years from now, you're sitting around the table and you're going, dang, we're not done, but we've made the next couple big steps forward in facilities. 2019 referendum is positive news. We've dealt with some other big facility things that we need to. And we're looking, and our finances continue to be strong. Let me ask you, do you have, at that point, do you need your superintendent to have a goal that's aimed right at standard 3? If you've got facilities well on its way, you're financially in pretty good shape, no other big management issues, do you need to be working with Mike to have a goal around finances, facilities, management stuff? Probably not. So there's my example when you de-emphasize that. But if you've made the kind of headway you're anticipating and expecting in culture, I guarantee you 1 and 2 are going to come more strong into light. Or maybe the community connection, right, is going to come. So you want to have that latitude, and I am sorry we've not, as an organization, we've not helped boards like we need to understand the clarity. You want to be able to turn the spigots, tighten them down in some areas and loosen them up in others. And if a board soup is revisiting the goals every year or two and deciding which of these need the spotlight shine on for his work and his evaluation, you've got the latitude to do that. Which ought to be your friend. So thank you for asking. Now go to the last page. 5 minutes or less, we can do this. So imagine a scenario that plays right into what you've asked about, Robin, your comments, Jason and Scott, your comment about we've tried to move to every 3 months, 3 or 4 months, 3 times a year, doing something. So imagine this. What you've got in front of you is these standards. You've already identified 2 or 3 of them that are heavier hitters. Standards 2 and 3. Move at 5. You've got his goals, no secret. And he's done this and you've done this. Before you come into your late November board workshop meeting, evaluation conference, where it's part of a regular meeting that you go into closed session or you come in or whatever you do. When you come to meet, that a week or 2 before that, you've looked at those goals. He's been reporting progress along the way. You've gotten stronger at revisiting your district goals at board meetings. He's in his weekly updates. He's sharing some things about progress. Imagine that all 5 of you and Mike, you've each you limit yourself to space is small here on purpose.
Mhm.
You just write one or two things where you say, here's where, from my vantage point as a board member, he's got momentum in winning his sales, thinking about those goals and those standards. And oh, by the way, here's a thing or two that has either emerged, or I was hoping he was able to spend more time on, or it's just looking forward, we need more time on this the next semester, heading into the next year, whatever. If you each had those things written down, and you talk about number 3, if something new has popped up, you gotta have a conversation about, can we do everything else that was on the list for longest, plus 3 new things? Maybe not, have that conversation. But if you've each done that, and then maybe you send them to Jason, maybe to Terry, you'll have to figure that out, get them onto a sheet, and when you go to have his evaluation, during the year, partway through the year performance review, this has been a good opportunity for you to bring your voice into it, isn't it? You talk that through, I bet you'll hear things in common, and then you say, okay, we just talked for 30 minutes, we heard you, out of everything we said, what are the 3 strongest contributions we recognize as a board he's making? You capture that on a fresh piece of paper. We've got our individual ideas, but here's our consensus. And here's one thing or 2 things we'd like him to do next time. Agree to that, drop it in his folder, and when you come back together 3 months from now, repeat the process. When you get to next May, June, or whenever it is to do a summary, give yourselves a copy of this so you're not relying on memory for filling out a summary form. And I'll send you the somewhat improved, still shorter yet, but too long form. And who knows, you may decide we just want to create a little bit of an extended version of this instead of the ISB tool. I wouldn't jump ship on that yet. I would encourage you to try this for the along the way during the year stuff. And then
It doesn't allow, what we do as a school does not align with what is happening out in the industry, in the public. If I'm an employee and the way things are being evaluated there, and I don't see why there should be such a difference in there. Ours is really, I know there's these standards, but it's very clever.
it is, and some of those instruments that have like 8, 12, 15 little sub-descriptors underneath it, that's ludicrous.
Yeah, and
A lot of them say you have to
that's
evaluate
where-
the suit based
That's
on
where
all the
we've been.
subs right
Yes, and
there.
that's, and it's
C6.
been very frustrating,
Yeah.
and, yeah, and at times it's been like intimidating.
I can see that.
Well,
So,
your abbreviated form, I see, is 12 pages long, but by the time,
and I've never been shorter.
well, but I'm saying by the time that evaluation was filled out with all of the indicators, processes, and the things we've done to work towards attaining the goals, you
Yeah,
know, we were 19, 21 pages.
we're gagging and choking on it now,
Yeah.
right? Okay, try this. You want to take 3 more minutes? It's your call.
Sure.
Send these around. Here's the shorter one yet. And this is a 4-point scale. I've got one with a 5-point scale. I didn't think we'd go here tonight, but I brought these in case. Sure, no problem. And I've got another one too. Did everybody get one of these?
Yep.
Okay, and I'll leave with Mike, Jason, the other one. This happens to have a 4-point scale. I just wanted to show you something different. Here are some places where this tool is more simplified. If you go to the first page, we put some sample indicators in there. You don't like those, you replace with your own. A lot of them say that there aren't state indicators, they're state standards. So that's one. Some boards like Sioux City and Carroll have said they like the 4-point scale because you have a 5-pointer, people just kind of sag in the middle. And so look at I like this. The 2 says almost there, but that's not a job threatening performance, but 1's a problem. Okay, so that's one thing. You did these indicators. You can add your own. Here's another thing we did. Working with those couple districts. Go to page 3, standard 5. The law does not say you have to have a 5 or 4 or 3-point scale. And boards are saying to us, you know what? Integrity and honesty, it's either working or it's not. We're not going to say you're 4 on integrity or 3. You're either cutting it with us or you're not.
Well, that's a personal opinion.
That's right.
Yep.
And that's a tighter one, so let's not agonize over a rating scale. And the other thing we did, when you look at the instrument, if you go to the last page, there used to be a whole nother, there's one in here. Or I brought a sample that I think your search firm left with you, the old version we had on it. It had some more check boxes where you rate again, and we said, this is nuts. We just spent time with the check boxes on each of the 5, 6 standards. That's enough. Let's not go back and repeat that thing again. Just, if you've done a good ongoing job, which I have real high hopes for you, with this gray sheet or something like that, that ought to make that last page easy peasy, shouldn't it? Strengths, areas for growth, what's he need for support? That's
This is
really
much
the heart
better.
and soul. It is better, isn't it?
Way better.
It's not perfect, but it's, I'll send it to you digitally. And you can use the 5-point scale. Back to your, but I like the 4. Back to Robin's comment, this is the animal, I think. That's what the Carols, the Sioux Cities of the world have gotten traction, have said, this changed it for us. Questions or comments?
And
Don't
again,
you know
how
on a-
often they're
on a-
doing this?
Anywhere from probably 1 to 3 times a year. I'd encourage you with a new soup, at least a couple.
On a 5-point scale, if you give 5s, they don't have anything to do. Because they're doing everything.
Yeah. Yep.
So you either never give 5s or,
There's always next year and a 3.
There you go.
Yeah.
So maintaining those.
yeah.
And we looked at the rhythm of going into that feedback, looking at like that late November, and then also looking somewhere in the spring, probably before spring break, and then get the final one come up within the summer.
Okay.
I could use like 1 or 2 minutes of feedback from you and accountability from me. There's a one sheet on the right-hand side. Thank you for your engagement and your work. Good stuff. Yeah, I'm still handshake. My grandpa got that.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Hope this was helpful. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Eric.
You bet, appreciate it. Missy, nice to meet you.
Yes,
The moment of full disclosure, I went to junior high and high school here back in the late 60s, early 70s. I lived over on J Street. I'm gonna drive by and go,
About your house, huh?
yeah, my mom will ask me to take a picture. She lives in Arkansas now. My dad, they'll want to know how the house looked. I'm especially interested in going forward. A couple of you want to share as we put away papers, a takeaway or a moving forward. You made good headway in 90 minutes, considering everything we spent time. Good for you. A takeaway or a looking forward comment from anybody? What do you got to do?
Just continuing to put some of this to work, looking at the forms, looking at the final product of the evaluation, I think was a big thing for a number of us to kind of pull together and make more effective and efficient for us. So
I think
going forward, that'll be a big thing for us.
my information I gathered from not only this, but then from listening to that workshop, was that we can more personalize this, and that's probably not the best, we can
No,
more
that's right. Make it fit.
customize this,
Yes.
these goals, as opposed to having these standards that are handed to us from somebody who doesn't know us on the roof, trying to make what we've been doing fit into those, as opposed to us making those fit into what we're doing, and then just keep working towards them.
Yes, and if you revisit every year, or it can become 2-year goals, but every year to and firm up Mike's goals using some sort of process like we did tonight, I think that's what, whoever designed the system, I think that's what they really intended, Robin, but they ended up making it foolproof with the 6 standards because we weren't doing probably what we needed to.
Well, I can just see, it's like guidelines.
Yeah.
But I think
Without
the
those
way-
being rigid
but,
and
yeah, that form was,
suffocating. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yes.
Yeah,
let's
I-
just say, it might have been something you just totally ignored.
You-
Well,
Yeah, we kind of
hopefully,
did.
the good news is you got, all 5 of you were here, Mike's here, run it this year. And then you're in a better spot after the election next fall to bring new board members into, your blue sheets and your purple sheets. if I could have those, the names are on them, so I can, we'll scan them or I can email them. If they want theirs. And your one sheet, you can fold in half. Anybody else, one or two other folks with a takeaway or next steps for the board? What's this mean for your work? Comments?
I think this was a good 90 minutes plus spent, considering 2 board members that are just approaching their 1-year anniversary, and we went through the process and really weren't sure. Okay, I know you weren't sure because I wasn't sure, and I've done this for years. And then with Mike being a new superintendent, the 90 minutes was well worth the time. Going through the information and reviewing. I was thinking of a number of things that we saw and heard on the video of the work session that you have on your
We hit
website.
tonight.
Yes, so it was time well spent.
Good. You have a good game plan in your strategic plan. It's not perfect, nobody's is. You got a good game plan, ride that horse. And you've learned from things that were clunky around Superintendent Val. You've got some ideas in place now to streamline, smooth it out. So run it, and then I'd love some point, just a 15-minute phone call with you next summer, just debrief and say, here's what we learned, here's what helped us move forward, and we still don't like this piece. Wouldn't it be fun to dial in and hear what you have to say? So thank you
Yeah,
so
and I
much.
think I was impressed with your strategic plan. I was curious to learn how you use it. And then as you talked, I thought, was this right here? As you move about, you just mentioned you saw positive Facebook comments. Sometimes it's not going to be praise, but you think about how that fits your goals. And where would it fit on those 5, 6 standards for superintendent? So you're kind of building that mentally as you go, but it's not that threatening formal document.
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, that's it. Well, good night.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay,
Thank you.
95 minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I just want to say thank you, because again, I get paid for this job. You guys are volunteers, and giving up 2 hours of your night and your family to help my own professional learning and growth to better serve our kids in our community and the board, so I appreciate it.
It's not just for you, Mike, I mean, we got a lot of it.
And kids and grandkids, we've got businesses in this district. Schools are an integral part of our community and our district. And it's very important, our jobs, we take them very seriously, even though they're volunteer positions. We're going to do the best of our ability without realizing financial money.
I think
A lot of other benefits out there.
my hope and I think investment time tonight will pay off, double, triple the time spent tonight.
I appreciate that, Josh. Appreciate it, Robin.
Good night.
All right, thank you all for
Yeah.
coming, greatly appreciated. So, good luck in your superintendent search.
Yeah. I'm a
She shared
community
that,
member.
she shared that Decora's superintendent announced his retirement, so. I hadn't heard
Of
that.
course, a really lousy place.
Yeah.
I can't move any farther than Minnesota. Thank you, Harry.
Even though you're wearing purple, we're not going to.
Move on to agenda item 7 is the consideration of consent agenda. Is there a motion?
Move to approve the consent agenda items as listed below.
A second?
Motion is second to approve the consent agenda items as listed below. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Agenda item 8 is correspondence and miscellaneous, and there is none. Agenda item 9, a reminder, is no board meeting next week.
Can I just mention something about correspondence? I wanted to
Sure.
bring it up. I did get a card from ISB about Employees Relation Conference in October. And I haven't had a chance to visit with some of you and possibly with Mike and look at that. It might be something you would be interested in attending.
There was several things in the mail today at my house, and I assume most of you got it. We have check the mail here from ISB. Let's see, report upcoming dates, no meeting next week.
Wednesday morning breakfast.
Wednesday morning breakfast, if you can make it.
And where is that at?
Middle school.
Comments.
School starts Thursday.
School starts Thursday, yeah. Agenda item 10 is a consideration of closed session. Motion.
Move to go into closed session per Iowa Code 2151A to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential.
I'll second.
Motion second to move to closed session per Iowa Code 2151A to review or discuss records which are required or authorized by state or federal law to be kept confidential. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Dyke,
Yes.
Freund,
Yes.
Matt,
Yes.
Bakehomer.
Yes.
Walker.
Yes, motion carries 5-0.
Move to